we let our fears declare a war. And with the blood that surely follows, we are guilty of so much more. So set aside your wounded ego and let your sunlight shine down through, so you can cast away the shadows and in your mind make something pure.
Imagine, if you will, a world where the collective consciousness can be swayed not by the force of argument but by the subtle art of suggestion. Herein lies the premise of our exploration, the use of hypnosis in large-scale public control, particularly how it might relate to the shifting Overton window among Western liberals and the historical context of ideological infiltration in media and education. Hypnosis at its core involves a heightened state of focus where the conscious mind's defenses are relaxed, allowing for suggestions to take root more deeply. Now consider modern media consumption, the endless scroll of social media, the 24-hour news cycle, or binge-watching sessions. These activities, by their very nature, induce a quasi-hypnotic state where the viewer or reader becomes engrossed, potentially making them more susceptible to embedded suggestions. Television, radio, and now social media can serve as vehicles for unintentional hypnosis. The repetitive nature of news cycles, the emotional engagement with content, and the passive consumption can mimic the conditions needed for hypnotic induction. Emotional thinkers might find themselves more at risk due to their focus on interpersonal connections, making them prime subjects for emotional narratives over factual analysis. Now, the Overton window represents the range of policies acceptable to the mainstream population at any given time. The sudden shift in this window among liberals, particularly noticeable around the rise of Donald Trump, could be seen as not just a natural evolution of thought, but perhaps an unintentional hypnotic movement at best, or an orchestrated move by democratic government leadership at worst. Can I or anyone say this potential mass hypnotic induction was intentional at present? No. But here's what we do know. Trump was a known figure, often celebrated in liberal media. His transition from entertainment to politics was initially met with amusement rather than alarm, and that was only after several decades of prominent entertainment and news industry figures such as Oprah and the ladies of The View asking him to run for president, or at least heavily implying that he should. The sharp turn in perception could be seen as an example of mass suggestion where, once a threat to the established political status quo, the narrative around Trump was manipulated to shift the Overton window, making previously fringe anti-Trump sentiment mainstream. This was in part provably intentional, as many of the same media individuals who had previously praised Trump had suddenly turned on him without warning or sufficient cause, suggesting they were instructed to do so by political figures aligned with the Democratic Party. We can surmise intentional political manipulation even this early because of the admission of individuals such as Mark Zuckerberg and the findings of investigations into Twitter and other social media platforms directly implicating certain federal agencies such as the FBI. So the idea that federal agencies were involved in the political manipulation isn't in question. The only question that remains is how they also managed to manipulate a presumably free-thinking populace to change their perspectives to align with the parties, hence the mass hypnosis hypothesis. If one were to entertain the notion of ideological hypnosis, the previously mentioned media and educational institutions would be the ideal platforms. Through the curriculum and content, repetitive messaging could slowly shift students' and viewers' worldviews, aligning them with specific ideologies without overt coercion. Projects like MKUltra indicate that governments, including the US, have provably explored psychological manipulation by their own admission. If such techniques were refined and applied more broadly through media or education, one could argue this represents a form of mass hypnosis. Let's take a break from looking at the problem and take a look at some potential solutions. That is to say, ways one can protect oneself from becoming subject to mass hypnotic induction. The act of shifting one's focus, questioning the narrative, and engaging in diverse information sources can serve as a countermeasure. By reaching across the aisle and having conversations with people you disagree with and genuinely trying to understand their perspectives, whether you ultimately agree with them or not, you are actively generating a protective barrier against ideological dogmatic extremism and conditioning your mind to resist external influences. Continuing on, I personally suspect that all of this is a big part of the reason that some Hollywood figures have gone so radically anti-Trump. Hollywood is famously left-wing, having been a primary point of infiltration into American culture for the Marxist movement as early as the 1930s. Emotional or empathetic people tend to be much more interested in people and social scenarios, which lends itself well to careers in acting. As mentioned previously, emotional thinkers tend to be more susceptible to hypnotic suggestion, making Hollywood a prime target for ideological subversion, and to make Hollywood a proxy by which that ideological subversion could be spread. Now, critical thinkers by nature resist the singular focus that hypnosis requires. Understanding the mechanisms of hypnosis and propaganda might immunize people against such influences, encouraging a more discerning consumption of media. The idea that hypnosis could be used for large-scale control, shifting the Overton window, or embedding ideological beliefs might seem like the plot of a dystopian novel. Yet the elements for such a scenario exist within our cognitive frameworks and media consumption habits. While we don't have overwhelming evidence of a grand hypnotic scheme, the theoretical exploration serves as a cautionary tale about the power of suggestion, the importance of media literacy, and the need for vigilant critical thinking in the face of ever-evolving information warfare. In this age of declining human psychological wellness and overt political manipulations, we might all do well to occasionally pinch ourselves just to see if we're truly awake or if someone else has taken the wheel while we slept. Thank you so much for watching. As always, your subscription to my channel would help my message to reach more people, and liking this video raises its visibility in the algorithm. So please do the YouTube thing and like, share, and subscribe. And if you have anything to add to the conversation or anything you'd like to offer a correction or expansion to, please do share in the comments section below. And with that, I'll see you next video. Have a good one.
The truths here in our hands and build with them a better future. Or did you think we need no plan? But when we ignore intelligence inside, we let our fears declare a war. And with the blood that surely follows, we are guilty of so much more. So set aside your wounded ego and let your sunlight shine down through, so you can cast away the shadows and in your mind make something pure. With no more time to run for shelter, tell me friend, what will you do? Looks like your time is running out now, so with your last breath you must choose to rise above your tainted convictions and put to rest the world you knew, so you can muster all your forces and with them forge the world of truth. But when we ignore intelligence inside, we let our fears declare a war. And with the blood that surely follows, we are guilty of so much more. So set aside your wounded ego and let your sunlight shine down through, so you can cast away the shadows and in your mind make something pure. Dust has settled and our view of things made clear, you will find that all this started cause you were subject to your peers. As my words ring through the wind and bright corona scar the earth, I will leave you with this wisdom. Think for yourself to save this world. When we ignore intelligence inside, we let our fears declare a war. And with the blood that surely follows, we are guilty of so much more. So set aside your wounded ego and let your sunlight shine down through, so you can cast away the shadows and in your mind make something pure. When we ignore intelligence inside, we let our fears declare a war. And with the blood that surely follows, we are guilty of so much more. So set aside your wounded ego and let your sunlight shine down through, so you can cast away the shadows and in your mind make something